The Bath machine rolls forward. A final at Twickenham awaits, but this was anything but plain sailing for the men from the wreck. Hello amateurs, welcome back to the channel. Well, it's great to see you. Thanks for showing up. Now then, a few cliches out of the way. Game of two halves, it certainly was that. And also the thing that rugby players say so often, can we get our game on the pitch? And Bristol did for the first half, but crucially, didn't get the points when they were really dominant. Bath definitely did for the second half and were lethal when they got into Bristol 22. Alrighty, let's go through this one and pick out some interesting things that happened. And started off, Bath gave away a penalty, Pepper off his feet, but it was reversed after a bit of chat from Genge, which on reflection, looking at the replays and stuff like that, it seemed a little bit harsh. Cam Redpath came charging in, as Genge rightly pointed out to the referee, chops it off, I think he said. And Genji didn't do too much, really, to be honest. But he was fizzing, especially in that first half today. I would say right on the edge, possibly a little bit overstimulated. I think it's very close to him losing control a couple of times in that game. And yeah, got to be careful of that. Really got to be careful of that. Could sense it coming with the way he was talking about this game during the week. He's got rid of that out of his game in recent years, but that was a step backwards for him today in that respect. In respect to his carrying and his physicality and his scrummaging, I thought he was outstanding for the time he was on the pitch. It was a fairly static opening 10 minutes. Not much really happened. It was a sort of battle for territory and possession, really, but there was a McGinty chip over, which I loved Finn Russell's response to. He just ran up, called it on the half volley and booted it down the pitch. It's the type of thing you can't coach, and you certainly probably wouldn't encourage as a coach, but he got it right, and you got to back your players, especially the really skillful ones like Finn Russell. Bath had a line-out which they threw over the top, and Bristol were away up the right-hand side. Pepper penalised for not releasing, and it was 3-0 to Bristol after 12 minutes. And this is where the game changed. It'd been very, like I say, static thus far, but at this point, Bristol just took off. And they were running the ball from absolutely everywhere, as they like to do, tearing Bath to pieces a lot of the time, as they're very capable of doing. But it was a great tackle, combined actually by Kloska, the tight head, and Genge. Kloska I was really impressed with. It's the first time I think I've properly seen him play today. He's not the biggest tight head in the world, but his work rate and his technique in the scrum was excellent. They had a big tackle on Will Stewart. And there's a key point here because Bristol liked to run at spaces. Stewart really caught the ball and there was space inside that he could have attacked, but just ran straight in to the opposite props. They nailed him backwards. Bill Matter recognised the situation, came in with a brilliant counter ruck. Ogra was away and he had a brilliant game as well, I thought, with his pink boots, his stepping and his movement. He's a phenomenal talent, and Bristol absolutely flying. That led to the Dunn try, Bristol's only try of the first half as it turned out, but Ravuvu was caught deep in coffin corner. Will Muir a little bit, no, it's not inexperienced, he just got overexcited I think. Tried to charge in, Ravuvu got on the outside and then went galloping up the right hand side, found his mate Bill Matter and they were away. And as they recycled and moved further up the pitch, just always running at space and then moving the ball out to a different space. Bristol do that so much. They rarely go up a channel and get caught. They're always looking at where the next best space to attack is. And eventually, Bath had nobody. Looked like nobody through the middle. And Genge popped it to Dunn around about the 22 and he ran in for 10-0 after 18 minutes. And at this point, Bath was struggling. They could not get the control on the game that they wanted to. Bristol were making great ground and looking incredibly dangerous every time they moved the ball, but it was greasy. And there were a few handling errors from both sides creeping in, which meant the scrum battle was going to be very important. And I've got to say, it was a great battle and it was pretty even. I think there were a couple that collapsed here and there. A couple got the edge on either side, but really it was a great battle which nobody got the upper hand on. Into the second half of the first half, and Bristol got caught deep. Ajomo with a brilliant sort of lasso tackle on Ravuvu, which led to a penalty. Spencer went to tap and go quickly, but Ravuvu tripped him. I think it was deliberate, but it was very subtle. I think it was the correct call. Yellow card and penalty kick for 10 minutes, 3-10. But shortly afterwards, Bristol go the length again, and it is absolutely remarkable play. What's this bit? Bristol go length from Redpath. Oh yeah. Making sense of my notes here. It was a Redpath knock on, and Bristol go the length from that. But Pepper got the turnover under his own post. Penalty. Russell, 2 metres out from his line, right under his sticks, taps and goes. And they don't get the edge that they were looking for, that Russell thought was on. And Russell then just box kicked it straight into touch. This was symptomatic of the way Bath were in that first half. They were a little bit rattled. They were a little bit off their game. They weren't, I'm sure they wanted to really try and control territory and possession in this game. I'm sure they did. They weren't able to. And then I think they just lost their minds a little bit during this period from 20 minutes onwards. Bristol's attacking play was remarkable at times, and there were times when they were so flat, it looked like they could never get more than 1 or 2 passes in, but their ability to move, their ability to kind of hold their feet and let the defence come onto them, meant they still got it wide a number of times when it looked absolutely impossible. Bath were tapping and going a lot from penalties. Spencer did one up the right-hand side. He'd done the one earlier, the Russell one as well. And again, I think that's going away from what Bath really would have wanted to do in this game. Kick the touchline, get those big forwards going, and controlling the game and driving into Bristol. 37 minutes, and this was a key one, I think. Harry Randall looping off the back of a line out, got tackled by Guy Pepper and landed on the point of his shoulder, and that was his day done. I'm not sure, there were many other factors, but Bristol were never quite as quick, never quite as speedy as after Randall left the pitch. I've got to say, Kieran Marmion came on and did some really good things, but that speed of ball that Bristol rely on, it just wasn't the same. Randall's, up there, very much up there with the best in the world when it comes to speed of ball. Losing him, I think, was a big, big loss. Bath launched up the middle off a line out. Harding got the turnover, and there's a Ravuvu tackle just before that on Barbary. That got looked at by the TMO, and I think they gave him 6 months ago. That might have been a yellow card, which would have been his second, and therefore off. It would have been incredibly soft for him to go off, I think, for that tackle. He was pulling out of it. I think they got it dead right. Just a penalty for 6-10. But then immediately from the kickoff, Bristol got another penalty back for 6-13, and they worked really hard. They were the best team in that first half, but it was 6-13, and you just thought, I just thought, they've got to keep going. They've got to keep getting every little thing right, because they did get a lot right in that first half. And it'll be later in the game, when they've stressed the defence for all this time, that all the holes will really start to open up. That's what they had to do. They were getting their game on the pitch, that thing the players say all the time. Bath couldn't slow them down. At half-time, I was questioning, would that Randall injury be key? And Bath look a little rattled. They needed to try and get control of this game. But if you think about the things that I said during the week, they've got great culture. They've got great trust. They understand each other. They understand what they're all about. So I was thinking at half-time, they are probably going to come out and they're going to settle down. They're going to get their game on the pitch. I was going to say it wasn't helped by Barbary going off, but actually he did not look himself in the first half. Admittedly, Bath were on the defence and Barbary's more of an attacking player, but a couple of times when he had the ball to carry, he kicked one, or maybe twice actually, and he looked to pass rather than just batter on, which is his real super strength. He didn't quite look himself, so when he went off injured, it wasn't actually a surprise. And Miles Reid came on and was, I think, really outstanding in the second half. He had a dynamism about him that just said, I want that number 8 jersey for the final if we get there. He was fantastic. And Bath did start the second half well, but my goodness me, they were assisted by Bristol in some fashion, straight from the kickoff, knock on the kickoff, Genge catches it. Such a dumb penalty to give away. Kick to the corner, line out launch. They get a penalty advantage. Again, the referee's talking directly to the player. Get your hands off, get your hands off. I think it was Bill Matter. And he kept his hands in there. Penalty advantage. They went to sleep on the blind side. Russell hits Ted Hill for a try. It's 13-all, a minute into the second half. And it was just like all that work that Bristol did in the first half. Gone. Absolutely gone. And, Bath took the opportunity well, But my God, Bristol really contributed to that try by Bath. It was a pretty pathetic start to the second half. You can imagine the messages that Bristol would have been saying at half time. Let's be clean. Let's get back up their end. Let's keep playing. And they've just given impetus to Bath straight away. But this was a game that was all over the place at times. It was wild. It was crazy. And the 45th minute, I'm not even sure what happened. But this was the time when Ted Hill ended up tackling down Ravuvu after he'd broken a few players. Ravuvu was unbelievable in the loose today. Unbelievable at carrying the ball. He broke so many tackles. He looked so pacey. He was outstanding today. And I think if Bristol had won, he would have been man of the match. Bath launched off another line out. When they're 10 metres from the line, they do the same thing every time. However, this one was a little bit deeper. They got on the outside, de Glanville grubbered through, the bounce beat Ravuvu was a little bit slow to get across, which led to a cock and a singer try, and 2013. Now, I was a prop forward. I'd love to know from backs, especially outside backs, if you're listening to this, do you think, left winger, Gab Ibatoye, could have come up and closed de Glanville down? Because he just backed off. It was 2-2. I felt that Bristol could have just kept going forward and put more pressure on the Bath attack then, but he gave de Glanville time to get that grubber in. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. But now, this Bath crowd, this fervent Bath crowd, feverish Bath crowd that always support their team so well, whether they're winning or losing, were massively on the up. The wreck was bouncing. And when Will Muir went over for a try from another penalty advantage, in the corner, Horse corner, 27-13, and that really was pretty much game done. Ben Spencer took another quick tap penalty shortly after, which led to Kieran Marmion off with a yellow card for a no clear release. Oh, that was a tight one. I think if you look at it from one angle, it looks like he probably did release him. Maybe from the referee's angle, it looked less so. So a tight call, but off with a yellow card. Another launch from Bath. This is it. When they're 10 minutes out from the line out, they always pretty much do the same move. Off the top, they have a bank of 3 or 4 players running flat to the line, hit one of them. It was Cam Redpath, mostly from the left-hand side today. Pick and go. Russell got the ball back, blind, hit a Jomo on a short line. He was over for 34-13 at the hour. And what a turnaround. Bath had won that 20 minutes, the first 20 minutes of the second half, 28-0. And that's exactly what Bristol didn't do in the first half. They didn't get the points on the board when they were on top. However, 4 converted tries in 20 minutes is remarkable, absolutely remarkable. And that really felt like game done at that point. And for a little period, Bristol did get held up twice, once with Genge, once with Thacker. Tom Dunn went off. He was bleeding from almost every part of his face. It was quite remarkable. Kieran Donahue came on and hit an amazing 50-22 with his first touch. This kid looks like the real deal. So confident, so talented in all aspects of the game. He could be a real superstar going forward. But you felt like Bristol really had to score during that period to give themselves a chance. That being said, Janssen van Rensburg got over literally just by a sort of a blade of grass, I would say, for 34-20. And that was the 74th minute. There was still time for Bristol to give Bath a little scare, because if they got another try quickly and then the opportunity to go again, and if it had gone to extra time, who knows? And Bristol can score quickly. And they did have another couple of chances. Rubiolo, the Argentine second row, went charging up the middle, making huge ground, but there was a forward pass as Bristol tried to exploit the right-hand side. Ravuvu went up the right-hand side again. Absolutely wild, that man. But there was a knock-on by Marmion at the base of the base of the ruck, and that was pretty much it, really. Bristol did so much good stuff in that first half, but they cut their own throat at the start of the second half, let Bath into it, and Bath, when they got their chance, were absolutely ruthless and absolutely deserved to win this game and go through to Twickenham for the final next weekend. Slight concern about Finn Russell, hobbled off with what looked like a bruise or a bit of a dead leg, but it really didn't look too bad. I don't think they'll be too concerned about it, because he'd been hobbling around for a little while before he eventually came off. They could have taken him off earlier, I think. I'm sure he'll be fine for next week. That man's an absolute athlete. All right, that's it. That's what I think. Bath deserved winners. when they were on top, they got their points on the board. When Bristol were playing really well, they couldn't. And that was really the story of the game. Let me know what you think. Any players that I didn't mention that you thought had outstanding games, or maybe the opposite, some players that maybe didn't get their game on the pitch today, let me know in the comments down below. Give this video a thumbs up while you're down there if you don't mind. It helps other great rugby fans just like you find it. And you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next. And don't forget to get out and play.